So now resuming our class on arthritis and Ayurveda, we've given the big picture on Vata, Pitta, Kapha, and we've talked about ama being dampness and or mucus and or fat, and we've talked about external contract cold wind, internal cold wind from your dietary and sleep habits and exercise habits and meditation habits and sex habits, external contract heat, which can affect arthritis from the climate, and from internal contract heat caused by your behaviors of sleep, lack of sleep, excessive consumption of spicy food and alcohol, excessive exercise, lack of meditation, and excessive sexual indulgence, right? And in the case of the internal cold, it would be either Vata, excessive lack of sleep rather, or Kapha, too much sleep, right? Causing cold. And then the sleep or the food would be Vata foods, right? Eaten irregularly at weird hours, or Kapha foods eaten in excess that are going to cause cold internal dampness or cold internal dryness in the case of Vata. Then exercise, for Kapha it would be utter lack of exercise causes ama of damp cold. Vata will cause ama of dry cold from too much exercise or wrong exercise. It might not be too much, but it's wrong kind. So it's either too little exercise, Kapha, too much exercise, Vata, or wrong exercise, even if it's proper amount, means jogging, jumping, trampoline, right? When you're a Vata, you shouldn't be doing that. You should be doing ballet, Tai Chi, Aikido, yoga, swimming, gentle walking, mild hiking, okay? Sleep, food, exercise, meditation. Vata, very, very rare condition. Too much meditation. There are some spiritual, excessive people who are Vata who over-meditate. They spend 4 or 5 hours a day meditating, right? And they get Vata disease. In Tibetan medicine, this is spoken a lot as Lung, Tipen Pekin, means Vata, Pitta, Kapha. So any Tibetan monk or layperson in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition knows the word Lung, L-O-O-N-G. L-O-O-N-G. Lung means Vata. And when they come out of a long retreat, they say, oh my God, I'm so lung. Well, it's because you've been doing nothing but chanting mantras and then sitting there, focused, no thought. It actually disturbs Vata. Or having astral projection disturbs Vata if you do it too much, if you are able to do such a thing. So sleep, food, exercise, meditation. But that's very rare. The more common is utter lack of meditation will cause your digestive system and mental emotional system to develop ama. That applies to Kaphas and to Vatas and to Pittas. And then sex, too much indulgence in sex, in the case of Vata out of balance, who doesn't understand Ojas, will cause coldness in the body for sure, as will repression of sex. But that's less likely to cause you to get cold than overexpression of sex. So commonly people develop cold buttocks, cold genital area due to too much indulgence of sex because kidneys weakened. Okay? So there you go. So these 5, sleep, food, exercise, meditation, and sexuality, the 5 pillars of good health, are the 5 energies. If in excess or in deficiency or misdirected, inappropriate direction or expression. So overexpression, underexpression, or what's called perverted or perverse or twisted or inappropriate expression, means like Kapha eating lots of chocolate, Pitta eating lots of spicy food, and Vata eating a lot of rice cakes, right? For instance. So it's either perverse, means misexpressed, overexpressed, or underexpressed. In the right context, Vata Prakriti and Vikruti, Pitta Prakriti and Vikruti, and Kapha Vikruti and Prakriti will cause ama. In the case which causes arthritis. In a Vata way, dry, cold, light. Pitta way, hot, sharp, acidic, and greasy. And Kapha, sweet, mucusy, cold, and fatty. Okay? All 3 of those will become causes for ama vata. Ama vata means there's ama. Vata ama, pitta ama, and kapha ama. So ama vata, which is the Sanskrit word for arthritis, implies that the circulatory system, which is dhyana vayu, has pushed the kapha ama, the pitta ama, and the vata ama out of their respective sites, vata colon, pitta small intestine, liver, and kapha lungs and stomach, and pushes it into the joints, causing arthritis and eventually degenerative changes. when Vata gets severely disturbed. So there you go. But the cause of it all, more than anything else, according to Ayurveda, is wind. According to Chinese medicine, it's wind, cold, damp, which really is saying wind. And wind is always cold, with few exceptions. You don't find hot wind that often. It's mostly cold wind. So wind, cold, and the damp doesn't mean damp like wet. They're often dried out and constipated. No, the damp implies ama. Remember, Chinese is very vague language. Sanskrit's probably a little less vague, and English is very precise, perhaps owing to its Germanic roots, Anglo-Saxon roots. So English is pretty precise. So if you look at a business letter in French, it's very flowery and long-winded. English letter, it's concise and precise. Chinese letter, it's very short, half page, to say the same thing that took 1 page in English and 1.5 page in French. I had a book that was business letters in English, French, and Chinese that I used to study. So Chinese is a very vague language. So when they say qi, it means prana, means breath. Qi, circulation. But then the qi also means agni, metabolic fire. And when they say dampness, they mean ama, kapha style and pitta style ama. But then when they say dampness, they also don't mean ama. They might just mean plain old and simple excess water. Okay? So there you go. So it says dryness. Dryness is the opposite of dampness and can be caused when heat and inflammation dry out the bodily fluids. In the previous lecture, I said Ayurveda would disagree with that. That is why, but it would also agree with it. That is why when Ayurveda says Vata people can have all the spices on the planet except for green chilies, red chilies, and
Pungent.
cayenne. No, not pungents. Pungent, no.
Pungent is spicy, right?
Pungent that burns.
Yeah.
It's got to be dry pungent. But they could have all the other form of pungent and ushna and katu, right? But the pungent katu shouldn't be ruksha or kashaya. Ushna katu, if you want to speak Sanskrit, right? It shouldn't be dry, kashaya, ruksha, spicy, hot. It should be wet or oily, spicy, hot for Vata. It means don't do cayenne. Don't do green chilies, red chilies. Do everything else, though. So my point is, Ayurveda agrees with that. When the Chinese medicine says dryness is the opposite of dampness, yeah. Dryness, Vata, dampness, Pitta, Kapha. And can be caused. It doesn't say is only caused. So there we have to say, they mostly state it this way. Ayurveda mostly doesn't state it that way. Mostly Ayurveda says dryness, Tattara ruksho, leads to lagu, light, leads to shita. Tattara ruksho, lagu, shita. Dry leads to light, leads to cold. Why does coldness arise from dryness? Because there's lightness, lack of fat, lack of water, lack of earth, no insulating matter, and hence you easily lose your heat. Do you follow me? So too much dryness leads to lightness. Then you don't have the insulating kapha layer of fat or of water, like thermos, and hence you lose your heat easily. Chinese medicine doesn't speak this way. Doesn't mean it doesn't notice it, but it doesn't talk about it so importantly. They more say dryness is due to too much heat. Ayurveda agrees, but not on all the cases. But they suggest that that's the most common cause.
And that's kind of the connection between Vata and Pitta.
Exactly. That would be more. That would be more Vata pushing Pitta, which I described to that woman because that's what she had. The woman who was here earlier, she has Vata pushing Pitta, and I do that by showing when I light a stick of incense and I blow on it. The breath is not wet necessarily; it's windy, and that wind increases the burn, and it dries out any water that might have been that would have slowed the burn, and now it burns very fast and very bright. Vata pushes Pitta, or wind increases fire, or desire, raga, klesha, increases anger, affliction, dvesha, klesha. So the mental poison called raga, desire as opposed to needs of Vata, raga, klesha increases dvesha, klesha. Klesha means affliction. Afflictions of desire, anger, ignorance, greed, hatred, stupidity. So Vata increases Pitta in the mind and the body. So always soothe Vata because it causes 80% of all diseases. Don't treat the Pitta primarily. If Vata is involved, you must treat Vata along with Pitta. If you only treat Pitta, but then you ignore the Vata when Vata is pushing Pitta, you might subdue and put out that Pitta, but it's going to rise up again. Okay? Just like a fire that seems like it's almost gone, and then you blow on it and you get it to start burning again. Okay, so dryness is the opposite of dampness and can be caused when heat and inflammation, pitta, dry out the bodily fluids. That's called yin deficiency with heat, if we speak about it that way. Fluid deficiency caused by excess heat. Or when the blood supply to the tissue is poor, vata. Right? Dryness, vata, blood supply to the tissue poor. That's often due to coldness, because heat causes circulation. Heat causes water to boil. Heat causes things to move. That's why pittas are movers and shakers. Vatas are movers and shakers, but they're all over the place. So the heat from pitta causes things to move in an orderly way. The cold from vata causes it to contract and constrict, and hence pain. And lack of circulation, and hence cold hands, cold feet, even though the rest of them might be normal body temperature. Okay, next one. Wind. Page 240 still. Alan Keith Tillotsen's book called One Earth Herbal Stores book. And I had told myself that since I don't have the ability to easily modify these, because I'm not really that technical yet for those things, and I don't want to be, of having to edit audios and videos, that anyone who's watching this should go to Ayurveda, World Wide Web, Ayurveda means California.com. Because, you know, some people download these off the internet and share them around, but they don't see that there's a whole program and a structure around it. So go to World Wide Web, Ayurveda-California.com if you want to download these. All right.
I have a question.
Hang on, let me finish this part first. Wind, unless it's about what we just talked about.
Yeah.
Is it? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. It seems like what they're saying here is actually that pitta is somehow drying out vata because they...
It's not drying up.
well,
Yeah, you're right.
Cause when heat and inflammation dry out the bodily fluid. So
That's
it actually sounds like pitta is burning out or drying out the vata. So does Ayurveda agree with that kind of?
Yeah, but how did the pitta get so strong? You have to analyze it, right? So it's possible that the pitta could get so strong because the vata is what's cranking up the pitta. And if you just slowed down and trusted life, right, instead of spinning your wheels and running around like a chicken with your head cut off, I'm not saying you, then the pitta would naturally go to its normal amount. That's one way of looking at it. And you have to do that, figure that out by talking with a patient for a half hour to an hour and asking them about every aspect of their life, right? Astavida Pariksha, the 8 diagnostic methods. Foremost of which is dialogue and discussion, questioning, prashna, sparsha, touch, and pulse, but especially questioning, and looking, darshana. So you basically investigate all that, and you'll naturally know from your questions whether the vata, the winds of desire, is cranking up the fire of anger. In Buddhism, they say all anger is due to desire that has been thwarted. Because when your desire is fulfilled, you're like, yahoo, this is great. But then when they take away your play toy, you're like, what? I'm going to kill you. Right? What? I'm going to run away. What? I'm going to sleep. No, I'll just enjoy it in my dreams, says Kappa. So, that's vata pushing pitta in the mind, but same thing goes with the body. Monkey mind running around like a chicken with its head cut off, even if the mind seems fairly focused, but you're still being a multitasker, that's disturbing vata. And it's going to crank up your pitta. So when you don't catch all the balls, you go, damn, I missed the ball. And you get upset at yourself or others. Why'd you cause me to miss the ball, right? And now that affects in your body. So if that's not the case, then pitta is increased on its own. And that could be called pitta blocking the proper functioning of vata. In other words, if you crank up pitta so, and that's less common in our society, right? So if you crank up your pitta so much without disturbing vata, it might make the pitta so burning hot that it just causes the vata with that had normal dryness to become incredibly dry, right? That's what you're speaking about. But that's less common in our society than the monkey mind of vata cranking up the pitta. Just like it's less common to have kapha all by itself blocking the pitta and then causing the pitta to go higher in a certain way while being suppressed by kapha. Too much fat and mucus suppress the pitta, but then the pitta tries ways to squeak out and try to blow through that blockage of mucus and fat and to rear its ugly, snaky-like pitta head. But in the meantime, it's being suppressed by kapha. That's less common in our society than tremendous pitta workaholism. I need some ice cream, give me ice cream. I want a cheese pizza. I want a vanilla milkshake, right? All that sort of stuff. or the opposite of those comfort foods, but still the same domain, which is sex. So Pitta either will go with tremendous indulgence of food or of sex, right? So in other words, you get or of sleep, just like anyone does. The fundamental things, sleep, food, and sex. So Pitta can be so high that you crave these kapha foods, and that cranks up your kapha, right? So the Pitta can increase the kapha. The Vata can increase the Pitta, and the Vata can increase the kapha. But it's not normally spoken of that the kapha increases the Pitta or the kapha increases the Vata. It'll block the Pitta and block the Vata, causing it to express sort of weirdly, or try to escape out of that blockage, right? But that's less common than the more common pathology, which is Vata pushing Pitta, Vata pushing Kapha. And the analogy I use for Vata pushing Kapha, metaphorically, is that movie with Tom Hanks from about the year 2002 called Castaway, where he was on a Federal Express airplane as an employee. It crashed in the South Pacific. He swam to shore in a deserted island and lived for several years on the island. Then he escapes one day building a raft, and he's out on his own on the ocean, la mer, the mother. And the mother, Kapha, is very calm, right? Everything's fine, no problem. Maybe eventually I'll float back to California. But then the wind cranks up, and the wind is what made these big waves, right? So the wind of the monkey mind of desire and the wind of Vata in all of its forms is what cranks the Kapha up. But when the Vata dies down, the wind dies down, now the waves go back to their normal little undulating, relaxed sort of Kapha, right? You follow me? You might have seen this scene if you watched that movie Castaway.
Yeah.
If you haven't, rent it on Netflix. So Vata pushes Pitta. That's what we're talking about here, is most common. What they're describing in Chinese medicine, you notice, is where the Pitta is so high that it can cause the Vata to get disturbed. But that's less common, for sure. And I'm a Pitta Vata guy, right? So me, I would be seeing it more often, but usually I see it the other way around. So I'm the most likely candidate. A Vata 2, Pitta 3, a Kapha 1, right? So Vata can increase Pitta, Vata pushing Pitta. Vata can increase Kapha, cranking up the water. That's extremely common in our society. So I gave you the Tom Hanks movie Castaway metaphor, which maybe you go, well, how the heck does that apply to Ayurveda? That's waves on an ocean. How do I apply that to human body? I speak about it every day. If you sit in consultations or listen to them, you'll see those consultations. It's so common. The Vata people are so ungrounded that their body says, I'm going to do something to ground this out of mind, monkey mind, out of body, freaked out Vata. What can we do? Conspires the body maladaptively. What can we do to subdue this monkey mind of Vata? It's not even listening to us, body. They're having out-of-body experiences, an astral projection without even trying. What can we do? What can we do? What's the Sanskrit word for earth? K-S-H-I-T. But the K is silent. K-S-H-I-T. Vata's lacking in earth. The K is silent. Shit. I know. Let's make them hold on to their earth. Let's make them hold on to their shit. Means constipation. Right? So those who are not Vatas, like me, impossible for me to get constipation. I've tried hard sometimes just to see what it's like. It's incredibly hard. I have to travel back and forth between time zones in one day. And it's very difficult to get constipated for me. Because I'm Pitta. So, in a Pitta with Kapha, or a Pitta without much Kapha and without much Vata, they're going to generate mucus in response to so much Vata going on, or fat. So when my Vata was really high, I became very mucusy. Because in response to all that, my body says, well, you can't hold on to the shit. Right? Because I'm Pitta. It's hard for Pitta to hold on to their shit. Because they go from A to Z, mouth to anus rapidly. They go from I to speaking about it and lecturing it and teaching it rapidly. Most Pittas, they start teaching way before the Vatas or Kaphas. They haven't even graduated yet. They're already teaching seminars. They're becoming a teaching assistant, a TA, in their graduate senior year, right? This is Pitta. So the Pitta so rapidly digests information and food, so they're not ungrounded. They're actually focused. Even if they're flying at 50,000 feet, they're flying focused. Vata is at even 10,000 feet, and they're all over the place. Ooh, I'm jumping, I'm flying. So they hold on to their kashit, their earth, as a way of getting grounded. They don't want to do that, but their body forces them to do it. That's in a Vata. So what is Vata pushing Kapha? It's why the 5 killers. Heart disease,
diabetes,
cancer. No, got to do them in order.
Oh,
cancer, stroke, asthma, and diabetes. It's why they're all kapha diseases. But how could we have that many kapha killers? I thought that vata caused 80% of all disease. Well, then how come all the big killers in the USA are all due to kapha? What's going on? Does that mean they're all big-boned, chubby kids who are husky, looking like Tibetans or Eskimos or Polynesians, right? Or Africans, right? No. A lot of them are vatas, but they get fat. So you always ask the question. That's why I put it on the questionnaire, not what's your height, weight. Now, the very next question is 10 years old. I came up with 10 years from my experience it works best. Because by 16, all the obesity set in those skinny little kids, right? In America. So by 10, it's a nice cutoff point that probably the obesity hasn't set in big time yet. If they're a vata prakruti at 10, they're still probably vata vikruti. But then in America, these vata prakruti kids, constitutional vatas, by 16, they've added all the weight. That's false. And now they look like a pitta. And then by 30, they look like a kapha, a lot of these American vata kids. So what is this? Why do I sigh? It's because it's a very vicious circle. It's hard to cure, especially since we only do ice-cold beverages. And then when we speak of health food, we only speak of raw foods, cold juices, raw foods, cold fruits. Oh, frozen yogurt. No, that's not health food. So basically raw fruits and juices and raw vegetables are fine, but not for vata-pushing kapha, and hence they never lose weight. So why are they gaining weight? Because we could say fat is another form of earth, right? Mucus is not earthy, it's watery. But fat is like congealed mucus. I'm speaking metaphorically, poetically. So fat is the earthy aspect of kapha. Mucus is the watery aspect of kapha, right? And earth means shit. Shit is the earthy aspect of the body. It's why shit actually, earth, shit, poop, bowel movement, mala, the waste product, is not just a waste product. It's not just something to poop out. It actually serves a grounding function. It's why the skinny vata attention deficit disorder 6-year-old Indian girl patient I had, her parents told me, can you answer this for us? Why, when our girl is constipated for 5 days, she's no longer ADD by the 4th and 5th day? She's very calm and something changes in her personality. But she gets the sniffles. Well, I said the sniffles are because the ama's built up. Now she gets the sniffles. Then she has a poop, and we've noticed the sniffles go away. But she gets all ADD spacey again. And I said, okay, I want you to write the Sanskrit word for earth. Do you agree your daughter's not very earthy? She's skinny, like very, very skinny little kid. And she's totally bouncing off the walls. Now write the Sanskrit word for earth. K-S-H-I-T. But the K is silent. So this bodhisattva here in sandalwood, yeah, you want to look up at that? So this sandalwood bodhisattva here is called Earth Store Bodhisattva. Earth Store Bodhisattva, called Kashiti Garbha Bodhisattva. But in America, we say Kashiti Garbha, right? Because if I said Shiti Garbha, people go, what? You just called that saint shitty? Well, no, okay, it's Kashiti Garbha. So in America, we pronounce the K in this bodhisattva here, called Earth Store or Earth Treasury Bodhisattva made of sandalwood. So we go Kashiti Garbha Bodhisattva. But really, it's Shiti Garbha Bodhisattva. The K is silent but slightly pronounced. So this little girl was all vata disturbed. But when she gets constipated, she's building up ama and hence mucus and sniffy, runny nose and all that, building up ama. But temporarily, maladaptively, it helps. Her ADD, insomnia, and freaking out panic attacks. But then she has a poop, and now she's lost her center of gravity because she's so darn skinny, super skinny. And then her poop is not held anymore in the center of gravity because it's pooped out. And she doesn't have a strong enough appetite to eat some food, but eventually she does, and it builds up the shit, and her ADD goes away. When the earth builds up to ground her in her dantian, her center of gravity, her hara, 2 inches behind the navel, 2 inches below it, the colon. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
So that's why vata pushing kapha is the biggest pathology in America that causes the big 5 killers, which all have as its root obesity and or too much mucus, right? Why is massive asthma and mucus condition a big problem in the ghetto, in the black community in Oakland? There was an article in the East Bay Express in 2002 or 2003, the newspaper, saying maybe it's because of all the shipyards there, the Oakland shipyards with all the freight coming in off the ships and the trains and all the diesel pollution from the semis. And then people said, and I said, Ayurveda says, yeah, makes sense, that's probably it. But there's got to be something else, says Ayurveda. Ah, Maybe it's the fact that in the poor communities, in the Black Ghetto in Oakland, there are no Safeways. There are no Cala Foods, there's no Albertsons, no supermarkets. There's only corner stores that sell a little bit of stuff and liquor store. There's all these corner stores, right? That's part of it. And hence they're eating all this junk food, right? I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio.
And it's much cheaper.
What's that?
It's much cheaper, unfortunately.
It's cheaper, but actually more expensive. It's not cheaper. It's cheaper for the McDonald's and stuff.
Yeah,
If
that's
what
what
you
I
mean.
mean.
Yeah. But the snacks are not cheaper. The snacks, when you add up the prices of all those Lay's potato chips and Coca-Colas, gets pretty expensive compared to buying some vegetables and ordinary fresh meat. That's not pre-made. But the pre-made stuff is much cheaper and it's subsidized in the schools. So basically my point is, in the black community there's an epidemic of asthma in the last 20 years. But if you watch the movie Super Size Me, our sugar consumption in 20 years has increased hugely. Because now the small is 20 ounces. And it's 32 ounces for the medium. I haven't bought it, maybe it's even bigger now. And the 40 ounces is large. But then they have the Super Size Me, the super large, which McDonald's finally, after that documentary, but they said it wasn't related to the documentary, they stopped supersizing people. They removed that program. And it was mostly in Texas. It's funny he said that they supersized people. Everything's big in Texas. So, that's Vata pushing Kapha. So most common is Vata pushing Kapha in America. But then secondarily we'll get the Vata pushing Pitta. I had the Pitta pushing Kapha. I'm so hot and fiery, and then I go, ice cream, Ben & Jerry's. And I eat 1 pint of Ben & Jerry's every single day for a whole year in the year 1995. Corner store right across the street from me. I walk down, I have a Ben & Jerry's wife. I was married at the time. You want one too? Okay. She's Kapha, right? She gained so much weight, right, in 1 year. Me, I didn't gain any weight at all, just a little pot belly. But I became the mucus monster. And then now I'm all mucus, so I have Pitta pushing Kapha. And then my little knowledge of herbs at the time, no knowledge of Ayurveda, says, let's see. Where's that book here? Let's see. Yeah, we got some book here. Let's see. Okay, Western Herbology. Interesting. What's good for cough and mucus? Cayenne pepper and vodka. Okay. All right, I'm going to drink a vodka. You want some, my wife? No, thank you. Okay, I'm going to have a little peck of whiskey or vodka and cayenne pepper. I'll have a half teaspoon cayenne pepper. And it says, oh, garlic in the Western Herbology book. Garlic is good for mucus. Oh, great, okay. And now I eat raw garlic because it's good for you. It's best medicine. I eat 1 garlic with every one of her Chinese dumplings she makes me. She was from Sichuan at the time. Hunan Sichuan lady, right? She makes me dumplings. I eat 6 dumplings. I have 6 little thumb-sized cloves of garlic, raw. Just like the northern Chinese do. But up there it's snowing. And they're not all Pitta primary. They're Kapha. They're like Mongolians, right? So I eat that, and now I'm dying of heat. Oh my God, I'm so hot. Right? And I'm hot and my joints hurt. Oh, maybe I should take a hot bath. I heard hot baths are good for joints. Turn on the hot water, super hot bath. Oh, I feel so much better. Joints don't hurt. Now I get out and my joints hurt even more. Oh, right? But I don't have a cold anymore. The hot bath and the garlic and the whiskey or vodka and the cayenne pepper got rid of my cold in only a few days. It's amazing. This Western Herbology is really great. But I'm so freaking hot and angry and just lusty and I can't handle it from all that spicy. But I didn't know that was causing it. What to do? Ice cream. Let's have another vanilla ice cream. Right? And no, I'm too hot. So back then, I'd go up in my foggy North Beach apartment, stand out on the roof, look at the beautiful Golden Gate Bridge, but you couldn't see it. It was fogged in. And I'd tear off all my clothes and my shorts and breathe in the freezing cold fog. And I go, I feel better. I'm not so hot now. The next day, I've got mucus again. So I was Pitta pushing Kapha, Kapha blocking Pitta, and it's pendulum. Pitta pushing Kapha, Kapha blocking Pitta, Pitta rebels and cranks it up, and back and forth. I kept going back and forth, right? So this is what happens when you use herbs or pharmaceuticals without understanding the nature of hot or cold. Of Vata, cold, light, dry. Dry, light, cold. Pitta, slightly oily, hot, sharp, acidic. And Kapha, heavy, sweet, fatty, slippery, slimy, mucusy, right? So if you don't understand those principles of basically hot and cold, hot mixed with wet or oily Pitta, cold mixed with dry Vata, and cold mixed with oily or wet Kapha. If you only understand just those 2 gunas, 2 attributes per thing, right? Vata, dry, cold, Pitta, hot, wet, and Kapha, wet, cold. If you only understand nothing else, and you merge that into Western herbology, wow, you'll be such a great Western herbalist. You won't do the stupid thing I did, which is create the causes of so much heat in the body that the body wants to cool off fast by chewing ice and eating ice cream. And now you got all the mucus built up again. Now there's so much mucus, the pitta wants to blow the mucus out. That created bipolar in me. Manic, pitta, depression, kapha. And then when I read Chinese medicine, it says